Hey guys, March 15th, 44 BC, Rome at its absolute peak. Julius Caesar wakes up this morning as the most powerful man on earth. By sunset, he'll be bleeding out on the Senate floor with 23 knife wounds. And here's the thing that'll mess with your head. One of those knives belongs to the man he loves like a son, Brutus, the guy who's supposed to protect him. Today we're diving into the most famous murder in history. The betrayal that didn't save the Roman Republic. It destroyed it completely. Alright, get comfortable. Dim those lights. Maybe grab some water. Whatever you need. This story's going to take us deep into ancient Rome, and trust me, you're going to want to hear how this plays out. If you're new here, hit subscribe. We do these deep historical dives designed for late night listening. And hey, drop a comment. Where are you listening from? What time is it there? I'm genuinely curious. There's something perfect about exploring ancient Rome while the modern world sleeps around you. So settle in. Let's go back 21 centuries. Chapter 1. The Dawn of Betrayal. Rome awakens. The sun rises over 7 hills, casting long shadows across marble and brick. March 15th, 44 BC. A Tuesday morning, Rome stirs to life like it has for centuries. Street vendors wheeling carts over cobblestones, children's laughter echoing from courtyards, the aroma of bread from bakeries mixing with incense from temples. Nobody knows they're witnessing the last normal morning of the Roman Republic. In a few hours, everything changes, but right now, it's just another day in the greatest city on earth. In his villa on the Palatine Hill, Julius Caesar sleeps restlessly. 55 years old, balding, vain about it. Actually, he combs his thinning hair forward to hide the bare spots. The Senate just voted him dictator for life. His face is on coins now. They renamed a month after him. July. But here's what's eating at him. Rome's old guard hates everything he represents. Change, reform, power, in one man's hands. They whisper about kings and tyrants, and somewhere in those whispers, knives are being sharpened. Across the city, Marcus Brutus paces his study, can't sleep, hasn't slept properly in weeks. Noble features, philosopher's bearing, but tonight his hands shake. On his desk, letters, anonymous messages slipped under doors, tossed into his garden. Remember your ancestor who expelled the last king. Rome needs another Brutus. They know exactly how to twist the knife. See, Marcus Brutus isn't just any senator. His family founded the Roman Republic 5 centuries ago. His blood runs Republican. And Caesar? Caesar might as well be his father. That relationship between Caesar and Brutus, it's complicated. Brutus's mother, Servilia, was Caesar's longtime lover. Still is, actually. And there are whispers, quiet speculation, that maybe, just maybe, Caesar is Brutus's biological father. The timing works. The way Caesar looks at Brutus, the affection, the protection, it goes deeper than politics. Whether it's true or not, Caesar loves this young man, trusts him completely, which makes what's coming so much worse. Brutus knows it. That's why he can't sleep. The conspirators met 3 days ago, 60 men, senators mostly, led by Cassius, who's been nursing grudges against Caesar for years. They call themselves liberators. Their plan is elegant in its simplicity. The Senate meets today in Pompey's theatre. Caesar will come. He always comes to Senate meetings. They'll surround him. Multiple strikes, shared guilt, shared glory. No single assassin. Everyone participates. Everyone's equally responsible for saving Rome. At least that's how they justify it to themselves. Brutus was the last to join, the most reluctant. But Caesar's wife had a dream last night. Calpurnia. She woke up screaming. In her nightmare, she was holding Caesar's broken body while their house collapsed around them. Blood everywhere. Death omens. She begs him not to go to the Senate today. Stay home. Send word that he's ill. Just this once. Listen to the fear in her voice. Caesar dismisses it gently. Dreams and superstition, he says, but you can see it in his eyes. The dream bothers him more than he admits. Then there's the soothsayer, this old man who reads bird flights and animal entrails for omens. Yesterday he grabbed Caesar's arm in the street. Beware the Ides of March, he said. The 15th. Today, Caesar laughed it off publicly, made jokes about superstitious old fools, but privately he's been thinking about it. The Ides of March, such a specific warning, such strange conviction in the old man's voice. Why today? Why such certainty? The rational part of Caesar's mind dismisses it. The Roman part listens. Meanwhile, the city awakens completely. Slaves carrying water jars, merchants haggling over prices, senators in togas heading to morning meetings, children playing knucklebones in the streets, Roman matrons shopping for household goods, the baths filling up with early swimmers, life continuing as it always has, this massive, vibrant, chaotic city going about its business, 1 million people living their lives, completely unaware that their world is about to shatter, that the republic their grandfathers fought for is breathing its final hours. Brutus finally makes his decision. He sends word to his fellow conspirators. He's committed, for Rome, for the republic, for the ideals his ancestors died defending. But his hands still shake as he straps on his toga. The irony cuts deep. He's about to murder the man who's been more of a father to him than his actual father ever was. But that's exactly why it has to be him. Caesar would never suspect Brutus, would never defend against an attack from someone he loves so completely. Caesar's morning routine proceeds normally. Breakfast with Calpurnia. She's quiet, withdrawn, still shaken by her nightmare. She touches his arm frequently, as if checking that he's real, that he's solid. Caesar notices but says nothing. He has work to do, laws to consider, appointments to keep. The Senate meeting is scheduled for mid-morning. Important business today. A proposal about his upcoming campaign in Parthia. Little does he know, the only campaign ending today is his life. The senators are already gathering. The conspirators arrive at Pompey's theatre early. They need time to prepare mentally, to rehearse their movements, to hide their daggers properly under their togas. Cassius takes charge, positioning everyone. When Caesar enters, they'll approach naturally. Some will petition him. Others will crowd close. Then the signal, the strike. Quick, decisive, irreversible. They're saving Rome, they tell themselves. Liberating the Republic. They'll be heroes. History will vindicate them. At least that's what they desperately hope, as their hearts hammer against their ribs. Against every warning, every dream, every omen, Caesar makes his choice. He's going to the Senate. Calpurnia's pleas, the soothsayer's warning, his own growing uneasiness, none of it matters. He's Julius Caesar, conqueror of Gaul, dictator of Rome. He doesn't hide from threats or bow to superstition. His litter bearers hoist him up. The morning sun catches the gold embroidery on his toga. He looks magnificent, powerful, untouchable. In 2 hours, that same toga will be soaked with his blood. The die, as he once said, is cast. Chapter 2. The Senate and the Serpent. A conspiracy born. Let's rewind the clock. 4 months before those 23 wounds. Rome still glitters under Caesar's rule, but something's rotting underneath all that marble. Deep in the Senate house, where shadows pool between ancient columns, whispered conversations are turning dangerous. Men who once called Caesar friend now speak his name like a curse. And at the centre of it all, Gaius Cassius Longinus. Lean, bitter, burning with something that looks like patriotism, but feels a lot more like jealousy. Cassius has been watching Caesar's rise with the kind of attention that keeps you awake at night. Every triumph, every honour, every time the crowd roars Caesar's name, it eats at him. See, Cassius fought beside Caesar in wars, shared tents, shared wine, shared the brotherhood of battle. But somehow Caesar became a god, while Cassius remained just another senator. And that's the kind of wound that festers, the kind that turns a man into something he never thought he'd become, a conspirator. The first meeting happens almost by accident. Cassius and a few senators lingering after a session, voices dropping low when Caesar's name comes up. Someone mentions how he's been accepting divine honours. Someone else whispers about the golden chair, the crown he almost accepted, and suddenly they're not just complaining anymore, they're planning. The Senate House at night becomes their cathedral of treason, oil lamps casting long shadows while they speak of saving Rome from its saviour. The conspiracy grows like a disease. Casca joins first nervous, twitchy, but committed. Then Decius Brutus, Caesar's friend who knows exactly how to manipulate him. Caima, Basileus, each one brings their own grievances, their own justifications. But here's what's interesting. None of them will admit they're doing this for personal reasons. Oh no, every single one of them claims they're saving the Republic, saving freedom, saving Rome itself. Maybe they even believe it. People are really good at lying to themselves. Listen to them talk, and you'd think they were philosophers, not assassins. They quote Cicero, reference ancient heroes who killed tyrants. Cassius especially loves to speechify about liberty and tradition, about how Caesar has perverted everything Rome once stood for, how he's made himself king in all but name, how the Republic is dying under his boot heel. Beautiful words, noble words, the kind of words that make murder sound like virtue, the kind that let you sleep at night after planning to kill your friend. But underneath all those high-minded ideals, smaller, uglier truths. Cassius was passed over for Syria. Casca resents Caesar's mockery in the Senate. Decius wants favour with whoever comes next. They're not saving Rome. They're settling scores, and they know it. That's why they need more than personal grudges. They need someone pure, someone whose motives can't be questioned, someone whose participation would sanctify the whole bloody business. They need Marcus Brutus, Caesar's friend, maybe even Caesar's son. Recruiting Brutus becomes their obsession. Problem is, Brutus actually loves Caesar, sees him as a father figure, a mentor, maybe something deeper. But Brutus also loves the Republic, loves the idea of it anyway. The old stories of virtuous ancestors who put principle above personal loyalty. Cassius knows exactly which strings to pull. He starts leaving anonymous notes on Brutus's chair. Your ancestors would be ashamed. Remember who you are. Rome calls for another Brutus. Psychological warfare disguised as patriotic inspiration. The campaign for Brutus's soul intensifies. Late-night visits from Cassius, who's discovered his talent for persuasion. He paints Caesar as a tyrant in waiting, points to every honour, every triumph, every moment Caesar seemed to enjoy his power just a little too much. And Brutus, he's torn apart. You can see it in how he walks, how he sleeps. His wife Porcia notices, asks what's wrong. But how do you tell the woman you love that you're considering murdering the man who's been a father to you? The conspirators meet in gardens now, in private homes, anywhere but the Senate House. Their numbers grow. 60 men eventually. 60 senators convinced that killing Caesar will restore the Republic. They plan every detail, who will strike first, how to get close, what to do with the body afterward. But here's what they don't plan for, what happens next. They think Caesar's death will magically return Rome to some golden age that never really existed. They're about to learn how wrong smart men can be. The conspiracy takes on a life of its own. Secret handshakes, code words, the thrill of shared danger. Some of these men are getting drunk on it. The power of holding life and death in their hands. The feeling that they're making history. But others are starting to have doubts. What if they're wrong? What if Caesar really is what Rome needs? What if they're not heroes but criminals? Too late now, the machine's already in motion. And once you cross that line, there's no going back. finally Brutus breaks. Not all at once, but piece by piece, conversation by conversation. Cassius wears him down with philosophy and flattery and carefully chosen truths. The Republic is dying. Caesar has too much power. Someone has to act. And if someone like Brutus doesn't act, who will? The decision tears him apart, but he makes it. When Brutus joins the conspiracy, the other plotters know they've won. With Caesar's beloved Brutus on their side, they can't lose, or so they think. The final planning sessions have an almost religious intensity. These men have convinced themselves they're saving Rome, that history will honour them, that Caesar's death will birth a new golden age of republican virtue. They choose the Ides of March, the Senate meeting, maximum symbolism. They'll kill Caesar in the very heart of Roman government, surrounded by the senators he supposedly oppressed. It's perfect, poetic, everything a political murder should be, except they've forgotten one tiny detail, what comes after. The night before they've set their plan in motion. Some of the conspirators can't sleep. They pace their houses, pray to their gods, wonder if they're heroes or villains. Brutus sits in his garden until dawn, wrestling with what he's about to do. Cassius sharpens his blade and thinks about glory. 60 men, 60 daggers, one target. Tomorrow, Julius Caesar dies. They think they're saving the Republic. They're actually about to destroy it. Sometimes the difference between salvation and damnation is nothing but perspective. The conspiracy is ready. The serpent has found its fangs. 60 senators convince their patriots, preparing to commit murder in the name of freedom. But as dawn breaks over Rome on the Ides of March, none of them can imagine what they're actually about to unleash. Caesar will die, yes, but the Republic they think they're saving, that died the moment they picked up their daggers. Sometimes the cure is deadlier than the disease, and Rome is about to learn that lesson in blood. Chapter 3. Fortuna's Wheel, Rising Power, and Silent Rivalries. Picture this. 2 men standing in the forum. Best friends, brothers almost. Caesar and Pompey, 60 BC. They're laughing about something, maybe a private joke about the Senate. Both of them giants. Pompey's already conquered the East. Caesar's got ambition burning in his chest. Right now, they trust each other completely. They're about to reshape Rome together. But here's what they don't know. Friendship and power, they don't mix. Not when the stakes get this high. The First Triumvirate. Sounds official, right? It wasn't. No ceremonies, no scrolls. Just 3 men meeting in private. Caesar, Pompey, Crassus. 60 BC. They're sick of the Senate blocking everything, so they make a deal. Pompey gets his veterans land grants. Crassus gets his tax contracts validated. Caesar, he gets the consulship. And after that, Gaul. The arrangement's brilliant. Totally illegal, but brilliant. They're basically running Rome from the shadows now. The Senate doesn't even know what hit them. 58 BC. Caesar leaves Rome for Gaul. He's got 4 legions, about 20,000 men. His friends think he's crazy. Gaul's dangerous, unpredictable, full of warriors who paint themselves blue and collect heads. But Caesar sees opportunity, gold, slaves, glory. Most importantly, time away from Rome while his enemies plot. He crosses into Gaul that spring. The tribes have no idea what's coming. This isn't some routine border skirmish. This is 8 years of systematic conquest that'll change everything. The Helvetia are moving. 368,000 people trying to migrate across Gaul. Caesar says no, blocks their path, forces them to fight at Bibracte. It's a massacre. Roman discipline against Celtic courage. Guess who wins? Caesar doesn't just defeat them, he sends the survivors home. All of them. Why? Because defeated enemies spread fear better than dead ones. Word travels fast in Gaul. The Romans aren't just tough, they're calculating. They think 3 moves ahead. Caesar's war isn't just about battles. It's environmental warfare. He's destroying their way of life, burning crops, salting wells, cutting down sacred groves. The Druids are screaming, "These trees have been holy for centuries." Caesar doesn't care. He's not just conquering territory, he's erasing culture, making it impossible for them to go back to how things were. The message is clear: surrender completely, or watch everything you've ever known disappear. The numbers are insane. Caesar's own reports claim 1 million dead, another million enslaved, entire tribes erased from history, women and children sold in markets across the Mediterranean. The Usipetes and Tenceri, Caesar lures their leaders to a peace conference, then massacres them all. His officers are horrified. Even by Roman standards, this is brutal. But Caesar's not building an empire on mercy. He's building it on fear, and it's working. Think Carthage, 146 BC. Rome's greatest enemy finally destroyed. They didn't just tear down the walls, they salted the earth, made sure nothing would ever grow there again. That's the kind of total victory Caesar wants in Gaul. Cultural obliteration, when he burns Avaricum, when he starves Alesia. He's following the Carthage playbook. Not just military defeat, complete erasure, make resistance impossible for the next generation. It's efficient, it's terrifying, and back in Rome, it's making him famous. The gold keeps flowing back to Rome. Caesar's letters home describe victories, but the real message is in the wagon trains. Treasure beyond imagination, enough to buy every senator twice over. Caesar's debt? Gone. His soldiers? Rich and loyal. His reputation? Growing by the month. Romans love a winner, and Caesar's not just winning, he's winning spectacularly. Getting wealthy while serving Rome. The perfect combination. Pompey's starting to notice, starting to worry. 53 BC. Crassus is dead. Somewhere in the Syrian desert, surrounded by Parthian arrows. The richest man in Rome, head cut off, mouth stuffed with molten gold. Poetic justice for his greed. But here's what matters. The Triumvirate just lost its third leg. Without Crassus playing mediator, it's just Caesar and Pompey now. Two alphas, two massive egos, and suddenly they're looking at each other differently. Not as partners anymore, as rivals. Everything's changing, the balance is gone. Pompey's in Rome, getting comfortable with the Senate. They're flattering him, calling him the defender of the Republic. Caesar's stuck in Gaul, fighting Vercingetorix and missing all the political manoeuvring. Letters between them get colder, more formal. The jokes disappear. By 52 BC, they're not really friends anymore. They're just two powerful men pretending they still trust each other. The pretense is getting harder to maintain. Pompey's making new friends. Cato, Bibulus, the old guard conservatives who've hated Caesar for years. They whisper in Pompey's ear, Caesar's getting too powerful, too popular, too dangerous. Pompey listens because, honestly, he agrees. He used to be Rome's golden boy, the great conqueror. Now everyone's talking about Caesar's victories, Caesar's wealth, Caesar's growing legend. Pompey's not used to being second best. He doesn't like it. Caesar sees what's happening. The Senate's turning Pompey against him, making Pompey their champion. It's clever politics. Use Caesar's old friend as the weapon to destroy him. Caesar's not stupid. He starts reaching out to his own allies, veterans, tribunes, anyone with a grudge against the establishment. Both sides are choosing teams now. Rome's splitting into two camps, Caesar's camp, Pompey's camp. There's no middle ground left. 52 BC. Their last private meeting. Nobody knows what they said, but when Caesar leaves that room, his face is stone. Pompey won't look at him directly. The friendship that once seemed unbreakable, it's over, dead. Two men who used to finish each other's sentences now communicate through intermediaries. The personal has become political, and in Rome, when politics get personal, people die. The wheel of fortune is turning. So here we are, 51 BC. Caesar's conquered Gaul, made himself rich, built an army that worships him, but he's also made himself a target. The Senate wants him prosecuted. Pompey's their champion now. The man who used to be Caesar's closest ally is now his greatest threat. And Caesar, he's got a choice. Come home defenseless and face trial, or keep his army and become an enemy of the state. Either way, the Republic's about to bleed. Chapter 4. Rubicon. When the die is cast. January 10th, 49 BC. Northern Italy. Caesar's tent glows with lamplight in the darkness. Outside, 40,000 battle-hardened legionaries sleep in their camps. They've followed him through 8 years of Gallic wars, watched him conquer an empire. Now they wait, not knowing their general is about to ask them to march on Rome itself. Inside that tent, Julius Caesar sits alone, staring at a letter from the Senate. The ultimatum that changes everything. Tomorrow, he crosses a shallow river, or he doesn't. And that choice destroys the Republic forever. The letter's still in his hands. Pompey's signature at the bottom. His old friend, his former partner in the First Triumvirate, now commanding him to dismiss his armies and return to Rome as a private citizen. No triumph, no consulship, just vulnerability. Caesar knows what that means. The moment he steps foot in the city without his legions protecting him, his enemies pounce. Cato will drag him through the courts, strip his wealth, maybe exile him, maybe worse. The man who conquered Gaul, reduced to a defendant begging for mercy, the thought makes his stomach turn. But here's what's eating at him. This isn't just about Caesar versus the Senate. It's Caesar versus Pompey, the great Pompey, the man who cleared the Mediterranean of pirates, who conquered the East, who used to be family. They'd married their children to each other, shared power, divided the world between them. But Crassus is dead now, killed in Parthia 3 years ago. The third man who held their alliance together, gone, and without Crassus balancing the scales, Pompey's gotten nervous, jealous, maybe. Caesar's victories in Gaul have been spectacular. Too spectacular. Rome only has room for one great man. The fire crackles in his tent. Caesar stands, starts pacing, his mind's racing through possibilities. What if he just gives in? Dismisses the legions, returns to Rome, takes his chances in the courts. Maybe he survives the legal attacks. Maybe his wealth and connections save him. But then what? He becomes just another ex-consul. Another has been telling stories about the old days, watching younger men take the spotlight. The conqueror of Gaul, forgotten, his legacy reduced to footnotes. Everything he's built, everything he's accomplished, dissolving into mediocrity. The thought's almost worse than death. Or he could cross that river tomorrow, take his army south, force the issue. But that's not a political move. That's war. Civil war. Roman killing Roman. Everything the Republic was built to prevent. His ancestors fought to throw out kings, to create a system where no single man could hold absolute power. And here he is, contemplating exactly that, becoming the thing Romans fear most. A tyrant. The weight of that sits heavy in his chest. This isn't just about his career anymore. This is about the soul of Rome. Cross the Rubicon, and there's no going back. He thinks about his soldiers sleeping outside. Good men. Loyal men. They've followed him to the edge of the world, bled for him in forests where Romans had never set foot. They trust him completely. If he asks them to march on their own capital, they'll do it, without question. Dawn's still hours away, but Caesar can't sleep. He keeps thinking about Pompey, trying to read his old friend's mind. Why now? Why this ultimatum? Pompey's got to know Caesar won't just roll over, has to know what this leads to. Maybe that's exactly what he wants. Force Caesar into a corner, make him look like the aggressor, the man who breaks the peace. Then Pompey becomes the Republic's defender. the hero who stops Caesar's march toward tyranny. Clever, ruthless, and it might actually work. If Caesar crosses tomorrow, he hands Pompey the moral high ground. If he doesn't, he hands him everything else. But there's something else. Something that goes deeper than politics or ambition. Pride. Caesar's never backed down from a fight. Never let anyone push him around. Not in the streets of Rome as a young man. Not in the mountains of Gaul. Not anywhere. It's who he is. The core of him. And now the Senate thinks they can just dismiss him? Send him home like a disobedient child? The insult burns. They want submission. They want him on his knees, begging, apologizing, admitting that they were right and he was wrong. Every fibre in his being rebels against that. Some things matter more than peace. The lamp flickers in his tent. Caesar sits back down, rereads the letter. The words haven't changed. The choice is still the same, but something's shifting inside him. A kind of cold clarity settling over the doubt. Maybe this was always inevitable. Maybe he and Pompey were always going to end up here. Two lions in the same cage. The Republic, maybe it's already dead. Maybe what's happening now is just the official funeral. All those checks and balances, all those carefully crafted laws, they only work when powerful men agree to be bound by them. When they stop agreeing, this happens. He thinks about tomorrow, about that shallow little river, just a few miles south, the Rubicon. Nothing special about it, really. You could wade across in 10 minutes, but it's the line, the boundary between Gaul and Italy, between Caesar's legal command and Roman territory. Cross it with an army, and you're officially in rebellion. The law's crystal clear on that point. It's treason, punishable by death. But laws are just words, and words only have the power you give them. Tomorrow, Caesar decides how much power these particular words have over his life. The fire's burning low now. Caesar adds another log, watches the flames catch. He's made his choice, hasn't he? Somewhere in the dark hours of this night, the decision crystallized. Not a sudden revelation, more like inevitability, like watching the tide come in. This is who he is. This is who he's always been. The man who doesn't surrender, doesn't compromise, doesn't bow. The Senate wants to destroy him? Fine, let them try. But they better be ready for the consequences, because Julius Caesar isn't going quietly into political exile. If they want a fight, they'll get one. Morning light creeps under his tent flap. Caesar can hear his camp stirring. Soldiers waking up, officers calling orders. The machinery of an army coming to life. Soon they'll look to him for direction, and he'll give it to them. March south, cross the river, see what happens next. Part of him feels sick about it, about what he's unleashing, but part of him feels free. No more politics, no more careful maneuvering, no more pretending the Republic still works. Just simple, brutal reality. Winner takes all, and Caesar's never planned on losing. He folds the letter, puts it away. His decision's made, but the words keep echoing in his head. The phrase that's been haunting him all night. Something he heard once, years ago, about games of chance, about moments when you commit everything to luck and fate, when you throw the dice and accept whatever comes up. Alia iacta, estimated, the die is cast. That's what this is. That's what tomorrow becomes. Not strategy, not planning, just chance, and faith, and the cold certainty that some things are worth risking everything for. The Rubicon flows quietly in the early morning. Shallow water catching sunlight. Nothing ominous about it. Just a river. But on its banks 40,000 legionaries wait for orders. Their general stands at the water's edge, looking across. One step changes everything. Changes Rome. Changes history. Changes the world. Behind him, the life he's known. The Republic. The rules. The careful balance of power. Ahead, chaos. War. The unknown. Caesar takes a breath, steps into the water, and the Roman Republic begins to die. Chapter 5. War and Victories. Rome's landscape redrawn. January 49 BC. Caesar's crossed the Rubicon. No turning back now. The Senate's declared him an enemy of Rome. But here's the thing. Caesar's got veteran legions who'd follow him into hell. Pompey, he's got political support but green troops. This civil war everyone saw coming. It's about to be over faster than anyone imagined. Caesar moves like lightning, takes town after town. The Senate forces keep retreating, keep hoping Pompey can pull some miracle. He can't. Picture this speed. Caesar takes Ariminum, then Pisorum, then Fanum. His enemies are literally running from him before he arrives. Town after town opens their gates. Why fight the inevitable? Meanwhile, Pompey's trying to organize resistance, but his troops, they're looking at Caesar's veterans across the field and thinking, maybe desertion's not such a bad idea. This isn't just military strategy, it's psychological warfare. Caesar knows exactly how terrifying his reputation has become, and he's using every bit of it. Pompey makes a desperate choice, abandons Italy entirely, takes the Senate to Greece, hoping to regroup. Smart? Maybe, but it looks like panic. And Caesar's thrilled. He marches straight to Rome. No resistance. The people line the streets. Not cheering exactly, but not throwing stones either. They're curious. This is their conquering hero turned enemy of the state. What's he going to do now? First thing, opens the treasury, takes what he needs, then heads after Pompey. This war's far from over. Spain first. Caesar needs to secure Pompey's allies there before chasing him to Greece. His generals think he's crazy. Split your forces. Never chase two enemies at once. Basic military wisdom says this is suicide, but Caesar's not playing by normal rules. He's gambling everything on speed and audacity, and somehow it works. Spain falls in 40 days. 40 days. Pompey's allies surrender almost without fighting. Now Caesar can turn his full attention east. Greece, where Pompey's waiting with every advantage except the one that matters most. Momentum. Plains of Pharsalus. August 48 BC. This is it. The showdown everyone's been waiting for. Pompey's got more troops. Better position. Time to prepare. Every strategic advantage you could want. Caesar's army is smaller, tired from marching, low on supplies. Any sane general would wait. Regroup. Find better ground. But Caesar, he sees something Pompey doesn't. His veterans versus Pompey's recruits. Experience versus numbers. And Caesar's about to prove that in civil war, quality beats quantity. The battle that decides Rome's future is about to begin. The battle itself? It's over almost before it starts. Pompey's cavalry charge crumbles against Caesar's fourth line, a tactical innovation nobody saw coming. Caesar's veterans push forward like they're on a training exercise. Methodical, brutal, professional. Pompey watches his army disintegrate in real time. His young recruits, they're not dying for the Republic. They're running for their lives. By noon, it's over. 15,000 of Pompey's men dead. Caesar loses maybe 200. The Roman Republic just died on this battlefield. Nobody realizes it yet. Pompey runs, abandons his camp, his supplies, his remaining troops. Caesar finds letters there, correspondence with kings and generals across the Mediterranean. Everyone pledging support to Pompey. Everyone betting against Caesar. Now they're all scrambling to switch sides before Caesar comes calling. But Pompey himself, he flees to Egypt, thinks he's got sanctuary there. The boy king Ptolemy owes him favours. Egypt will be his refuge while he plans his comeback. Except, Egypt's got other plans for Rome's former golden boy. September 28th, 48 BC. Alexandria's harbour. Pompey sees the small boat coming to escort him ashore. Recognises one of his former officers commanding it. Septimius. Good man, loyal. Pompey steps into that boat thinking he's found safety. Instead, Septimius draws his sword. 3 quick strikes. Pompey the Great dies in a fishing boat, killed by his own man. Why? Egypt's boy king figured it out. Caesar's coming. Better to greet him with Pompey's head than risk harbouring his enemy. Except, they completely misread Caesar. Caesar arrives in Alexandria, expecting to capture Pompey. Instead, they present him with Pompey's severed head. And Caesar breaks down. Actual tears. These idiots think they're doing him a favour, but they've robbed him of something crucial, the chance to show mercy, to prove he's not just another butcher. Pompey was his son-in-law once, his partner, his greatest rival. He deserved a better death than this. Caesar orders a proper funeral, burns Pompey's head with full honours, but the damage is done. Another piece of the old republic dies with Pompey. Now Caesar's alone at the top. No rival strong enough to challenge him. No partner to share power with. The Senate? Scattered or dead, or begging for mercy. He could go back to Rome right now, claim total victory. Instead, he stays in Egypt, gets tangled up in local politics. The boy king versus his sister Cleopatra. And this is where Caesar makes a choice that'll haunt him. Not the political choice, the personal one. Because Cleopatra is 21, brilliant, and absolutely stunning. And Caesar, he's 54 and completely smitten. The affair starts immediately. Caesar backs Cleopatra against her brother, wins a quick war, puts her on the throne. But he's not just playing politics anymore. He's genuinely infatuated. Spends months in Alexandria when he should be consolidating power in Rome. His enemies start regrouping. His allies start worrying. And the rumours, they spread like wildfire. Caesar's gone soft. Caesar's forgotten he's Roman. Caesar's become Cleopatra's pet. Some of it's jealousy, some of it's political calculation. All of it's dangerous for a man who's made so many enemies. June 47 BC. Cleopatra gives birth to a son, Caesarion. Little Caesar. She claims Caesar's the father. He never officially acknowledges it, but he doesn't deny it either. Back in Rome, this news hits like a thunderbolt. Caesar has a legitimate Roman wife, Calpurnia, childless after years of marriage. Now he's got a son with a foreign queen. The symbolism is toxic. Romans are asking the question everyone's thinking. Has their great general forgotten which country he's supposed to be loyal to? The answer will help determine whether he lives or dies. Caesar finally returns to Rome in 46 BC. Triple triumph. Celebrates victories in Gaul, Egypt, Africa. The crowds go wild, but underneath the cheering, there's tension. He's implementing reforms at breakneck speed. Debt relief, land for veterans, new colonies for the poor. Calendar reform, yes, he even fixes the calendar. All desperately needed, all wildly popular with ordinary Romans. But the aristocrats? They're watching their power evaporate. Their privileges disappear. Their ancient prerogatives get swept away. And they're starting to whisper about more permanent solutions. Here's what's really happening beneath all the reforms and celebrations. Caesar's acting less like a temporary dictator, and more like, well, like a king. His statues are going up next to the gods. His face is on the coins. The month Quinctilis gets renamed Julius. He's appointed dictator for 10 years. Then for life. The old constitutional limits, they're just not applying to him anymore. And some Romans, some very important Romans, are starting to think the only way to save the Republic is to kill the man destroying it. They're wrong, but they don't know that yet. Chapter 6. Games of Shadows. Secrets and Alliances. Rome 46 BC. The marble corridors echo with whispers. Behind every column, a conspiracy. Caesar's back from Egypt with Cleopatra on his arm, and a toddler who looks suspiciously like him. The senators are losing their minds. But here's the thing. The real power games aren't happening in the forum anymore. They're happening in private dining rooms. Late-night meetings, coded letters, Mark Antony's playing one angle, young Octavian's watching everything, and Caesar, he's walking into the biggest trap of his life. Picture this. Pompey's dead, rotting on an Egyptian beach. The great Pompey reduced to a severed head in a basket. When Caesar saw it, he wept, real tears. Whether from grief or guilt, nobody knows, but his tears didn't fool anyone in Rome. They all understood the message. The last rival was gone. Caesar stood alone at the top. No more First Triumvirate, no more power sharing, just one man with all the legions, all the gold, and all the power. That's when the real scheming started. Mark Antony's got Caesar's ear like no one else. They've been through wars together, bled together. Antony knows how Caesar thinks, how he moves, what makes him angry, but Antony's also got his own ambitions. He's not just Caesar's loyal dog, he's positioning himself for whatever comes next. Late at night, in his villa, overlooking the Tiber, Antony hosts dinner parties. Wine flows, tongues loosen, and slowly, carefully, he's building his own network, his own power base. Insurance, you might call it. Then there's Octavian. 18 years old, Caesar's great-nephew. Quiet kid, sickly studious. Most people barely notice him. Big mistake. This teenager's got ice water in his veins and his great-uncle's political instincts. He's watching everything, taking notes, learning who's loyal, who's wavering, who's already planning for Caesar's downfall. While other young Romans are chasing girls and getting drunk, Octavian's memorizing the names of every senator's weakness, every debt, every secret. Kid's terrifying if you really think about it. And Cleopatra, she's the wild card nobody saw coming. The Queen of Egypt, brilliant and beautiful, sitting in Caesar's house like she belongs there, having his baby, flaunting her exotic luxury in front of proper Roman wives. The conservatives are apoplectic. Here's their great general, defender of Roman values, parading around with a foreign queen. She speaks 9 languages, runs Egypt's economy, commands navies. But to them, she's just Caesar's whore. Their hatred of her is visceral, dangerous, and it's poisoning everything Caesar touches. The Senate meetings have become theatre. Elaborate performances where everyone knows their role. The senators bow and scrape when Caesar enters. They vote for whatever he wants. But you can see it in their eyes, the resentment, the humiliation. These are men who once commanded legions, governed provinces, made decisions that shaped the Mediterranean world. Now they're rubber stamps, Caesar's rubber stamps, and every time they have to stand when he enters, every time they have to call him dictator, something dies inside them. Here's where Caesar makes his fatal mistake. He starts accepting honours that sound suspiciously royal. A golden throne in the Senate, his face on coins while he's still alive. The month Quinctilis renamed July in his honour. Each honour seems small by itself, reasonable even. He's earned them, right? Conquered Gaul, saved Rome from civil war. But together, they add up to something that makes Romans deeply uncomfortable. Something that looks a lot like kingship. And Romans killed their last king 500 years ago, for good reason. The whispers start in the taverns, spread to the markets, echo in the temples. Dictator for life. That's the title that breaks everything. Not temporary emergency powers, permanent ones. Forever. The very words make Romans sick to their stomachs. Their ancestors died to throw off kings, built a republic where power was shared, limited, temporary, and now their greatest hero wants to be king in all but name. The irony's killing them. The man who saved Rome from tyrants wants to become one himself. Public sentiment's shifting like quicksand under Caesar's feet. The same crowds that cheered his triumphs now mutter when his litter passes. Veterans who bled for him in Gaul whisper in wine shops about the good old days when Rome was free. It's subtle at first, a less enthusiastic cheer. a slower response to his jokes. But Caesar's too busy governing to notice. Or maybe he notices and just doesn't care anymore. Power's addictive like that. Once you have it all, giving any back feels impossible. Behind closed doors, the conspiracies multiply. Not one plot, dozens. Some serious, some just angry drunk talk. But they're all saying the same thing. Caesar's gone too far. Someone has to stop him. The Republic's dying while they watch. Marcus Brutus, the philosopher-senator, finds himself at the centre of multiple plots. His ancestor overthrew the last king. People expect him to act. The pressure's enormous. Honour demands action, but Caesar's been like a father to him. Maybe literally, if the rumours about his mother are true. Cassius is different. Cold. Calculating. He doesn't wrestle with moral dilemmas like Brutus. For him, it's simple math. Caesar's destroying the Republic. Caesar must die. He moves through Rome's shadows like a spider, connecting the various plots, recruiting senators, building consensus for murder. He's got the military experience to plan an assassination, the political skills to build a coalition, and the ruthless pragmatism to see it through. Cassius doesn't want to save Caesar's soul. He wants to stop Caesar's heart. The ironic thing, Caesar's actually governing well. His reforms are helping ordinary Romans. Debt relief for the poor, public works projects creating jobs, new colonies for veterans, improved calendars, better infrastructure, expanded citizenship. If he'd just stopped, stayed a consul, shared power. But power's like a drug. The more you have, the more you need. And Caesar's overdosing. He can't see that his very success is creating the conditions for his destruction. Excellence becomes arrogance. Victory becomes tyranny. Salvation becomes damnation. The February meeting where Caesar's offered a crown, that's the moment everything crystallizes. It's a setup, probably, a way to test public reaction. When the crowd falls silent instead of cheering, Caesar waves the crown away. Smart political theatre, but the damage is done. Everyone saw the crown. Everyone saw him consider it. The conspirators have their proof that Caesar wants to be king. The public has confirmation of their worst fears. The die is cast, though nobody knows it yet. March is approaching. The Ides loom on the calendar, like a storm cloud nobody can see yet. Caesar's at the height of his power, surrounded by guards, honours, and apparent loyalty. But the shadows are closing in. Brutus has made his choice. Cassius has his conspirators. Antony's building his own power base. Octavian's watching and waiting. Cleopatra's presence inflames every conversation. And somewhere in Rome's marble corridors, 60 senators are sharpening their knives. The Republic's final act is about to begin. Chapter 7. The mad month of March, and mutterings of murder. March is coming. You can feel it in the air, in the whispered conversations that stop when Caesar walks by, in the way certain senators avoid eye contact during meetings. Something's shifting in Rome, the kind of shift that changes everything. Brutus feels it too, standing in his garden at night, staring at the stars, wondering how the hell his life got this complicated. When did loving Caesar become treason against Rome? The conspiracy isn't born overnight. It grows like a disease. One senator mentions Caesar's latest honours. Another shakes his head. A third says what they're all thinking. This isn't the Republic anymore, is it? These conversations happen in dark corners, in private homes, away from Caesar's eyes and ears. And slowly, very slowly, the unthinkable becomes thinkable. The unspeakable becomes whispered. The impossible becomes inevitable. Someone has to save Rome. Someone has to act. Brutus tries to stay out of it. He really does. These are dangerous thoughts. Dangerous words. Caesar isn't just his leader. He's practically family. Maybe actually family, depending on which rumours you believe about his mother Servilia. But the other senators won't let it go. They keep coming to him. Keep asking the same question in different ways. If Caesar becomes king, What happens to everything Rome stands for? Everything their ancestors died for? What happens to the Republic? Here's how they justify it. One death saves the Republic. One man dies, so the Republic lives. It's simple math, they tell themselves. Caesar's not evil, he's just become too powerful, too necessary, too much like a king for senators, who still remember what kings did to Rome. 500 years ago, they drove out the last king, swore never again, and now they're watching it happen all over again, unless someone stops it. Brutus can't sleep, can't eat, can't think about anything else. His wife Porcia notices. She sees him pacing at night, sees the letters he burns without reading to her, sees the way he flinches when Caesar's name comes up in conversation. She doesn't ask questions. She knows better. But she watches her husband tear himself apart over something he won't share. Some choice that's eating him alive. Some decision that's breaking his heart. Cassius is the one pushing hardest. He's been nursing grudges against Caesar for years. Personal slights, professional disappointments. The way Caesar looks through him, like he doesn't exist. But Cassius is smart. He knows he needs Brutus, needs his reputation, his family name, his moral authority. Without Brutus, this looks like what it is, jealous senators getting rid of someone more successful. With Brutus, it becomes something noble, something righteous, something necessary. The weight of history sits on Brutus's shoulders. His ancestor founded the Republic, drove out the last king, made Rome what it is today, free, independent, governed by laws, not men. And now Caesar, brilliant, generous, beloved Caesar, is destroying all of it, not intentionally, maybe not even consciously, but destroying it all the same, every honor he accepts, every law he ignores, every precedent he breaks. The Republic dies a little more. February bleeds into March. The conspiracy grows. More senators, more whispered meetings, more plans sketched in sand and erased before anyone can see. They're not just talking anymore, they're planning. Where, when, how, who brings what, who stands where, who does the actual deed. Because once you start this conversation, really start it, there's only one way it ends, with Caesar dead or with them all crucified for treason. Cassius keeps pushing, keeps reminding Brutus what's at stake. Your ancestor saved Rome from kings, he says. Now you can do the same. This is your moment, Brutus. Your choice. Your responsibility. The Republic is dying. Caesar doesn't mean for it to happen, but it's happening anyway. Someone has to act. Someone has to choose Rome over friendship, liberty over loyalty, the Republic over one man, even a man you love like a father. The moral weight is crushing. Brutus reads philosophy by lamplight, searches for answers in Stoic texts. What would Marcus Cato do? What would his ancestors do? What does duty demand when duty conflicts with love? When saving the state means betraying a friend? When doing right means doing wrong? There are no easy answers, no clean choices, only hard decisions and their consequences, only choosing which loyalty matters most. And then, it happens. The moment when thinking becomes deciding, when maybe becomes yes, when Brutus looks at himself in the mirror and sees not Caesar's friend but Rome's son, the Republic's defender, his ancestor's heir. The decision tears something inside him, something that will never heal. But the decision gets made anyway. Caesar must die for Rome, for the Republic, for everything they both believe in, even though it will break both their hearts. Once Brutus commits, everything accelerates. The conspirators have their moral center, their justification, their hero. Now they can tell themselves, this isn't murder, it's salvation. Isn't betrayal, it's duty. Isn't personal, it's political. The planning gets serious. The Ides of March, the Senate meeting, the perfect moment when Caesar will be surrounded by friends who've decided to kill him, for the greater good, for Rome, for reasons that sound noble right up until the moment the daggers come out. There's no going back now. The conspiracy has its own momentum, its own logic, its own terrible inevitability. Brutus has crossed a line he can never uncross, made a choice he can never unmake. In trying to save the Republic, he's about to destroy his soul. In choosing duty over love, he's about to become something he never wanted to be, a killer, a betrayer, the man who murdered Caesar. History will judge whether he was right, but first, he has to live with what he's chosen to do. March 15th approaches like a storm. The Ides, the day that will change everything. Caesar suspects nothing, still trusts his friends, still believes in their loyalty, still thinks his greatest danger comes from enemies, not from the men who claim to love him. The conspirators know better. They know what's coming. They know what they've chosen. They know that in just a few days, they'll either save the Republic or destroy everything they're trying to protect. Chapter 8. A Dream Deferred. Warnings and Unheeded Omens. Rome, March 14th, 44 BC. Something's wrong. You can feel it in the air. The gods are speaking. Through dreams, through birds, through the blood of sacrificial animals. But Caesar's not listening. Tomorrow is the Ides of March. The soothsayers have been warning him for weeks. His wife wakes up screaming. The signs are everywhere, and yet he's going to that Senate meeting anyway. This is how great men die, ignoring the very warnings that could save them. Picture Calpurnia bolting upright in bed. Middle of the night, sweat-soaked, shaking. She's just watched her husband's statue, the one in their garden, start bleeding. Real blood, pouring from marble wounds. And in this nightmare, she's holding Caesar as he dies in her arms. His blood mixing with the statue's blood until she can't tell what's real anymore. She reaches for him in the dark, still breathing, still warm, still alive, but the dream feels more real than his heartbeat. Caesar wakes to find his wife crying. Not just tears, she's destroyed. Calpurnia has never been superstitious. She's rational, practical. Roman women aren't supposed to fall apart over dreams. But this wasn't just a dream. She grabs his hands. Don't go to the Senate tomorrow. Her voice breaks. Promise me you won't go. And Caesar who's faced down Gauls and Germans and pirates, he's actually shaken, because Calpurnia doesn't break, ever, until now. Beware the Ides of March. The soothsayer's been following Caesar for weeks. Old man with wild eyes and a voice like gravel. Always the same warning. Caesar used to laugh it off. Just another street prophet. But the old man keeps showing up. Outside the forum, near Caesar's house. Always watching, always warning. And his eyes, there's something in them. Not madness. Knowledge, like he's already seen what's coming. Like he's watching a dead man walk around Rome. The omens are piling up now. Sacrificial animals with no hearts. Birds flying in wrong directions, lightning striking Jupiter's temple. Yesterday Caesar's horse refused to cross the Tiber, just stopped, planted its feet. No amount of coaxing would move it. The animal sensed something, and this morning, the priests can't find a single good omen. Every sacrifice goes wrong. Every reading points to danger, death, betrayal. Caesar's own augurs are begging him to stay home. But Caesar, he's getting angry at all the warnings. I am Caesar. That's what he says when people mention the warnings. Like his name is armor. Like being Caesar makes him immortal. Gods don't kill Caesar. Men don't kill Caesar. I crossed the Rubicon. I conquered Gaul. I defeated Pompey. His pride is a wall between him and reality. Every warning bounces off. Every omen gets dismissed. Because admitting fear, admitting vulnerability, that's not what Caesars do, even when staying alive depends on listening. Sometimes especially then. March 15th. Dawn. The Ides have arrived. Calpurnia hasn't slept. She's spent the night pacing, praying, pleading with any god who'll listen. Caesar's putting on his toga, the same routine he's done 1,000 times. But today feels different. The silence is too heavy. The servants move too carefully. Even the morning birds sound wrong. Outside, Rome is waking up. Inside, Calpurnia is watching her husband prepare for what she knows will be his death. And he still won't listen. Send word you're sick. Calpurnia's following him through the house. Tell them you have fever. Tell them anything. Her voice is raw from crying. Desperate. One day, Julius. Give me 1 day. But Caesar's already made up his mind. The Senate is expecting him. Important business. He can't show weakness now, not when his enemies are watching for any sign of fear. So he kisses her forehead, promises he'll be careful, and breaks her heart with his stubborn courage. Here's the thing though. Caesar feels it too. Walking through his house, there's a weight in his chest, something cold and wrong. He keeps looking back at Calpurnia, keeps almost turning around. Part of him knows she's right. Part of him wants to listen, but Caesar's spent his whole life moving forward, never retreating, never backing down, and changing course now, it would mean admitting the warnings matter, admitting he might not be invincible after all, admitting he could be wrong. So he hardens his heart against the fear, against Calpurnia's tears, against every instinct screaming danger. This is what makes Caesar Caesar, he tells himself. Courage when everyone else is afraid. Leadership when others would hide. He's faced worse odds before, fought bigger battles, won impossible victories. The Senate House is just another battlefield, and Caesar doesn't lose battles, even when the gods themselves are trying to warn him, even when his wife is begging him to live. The irony is brutal. Caesar's greatest strength, his refusal to show fear, that's exactly what's going to kill him. Any other man would have stayed home. Any reasonable person would have listened to the warnings. But Caesar isn't any other man. He's the guy who said the die is cast and crossed the Rubicon, who looked at Gaul and decided to conquer it, whose pride and courage built an empire, and whose pride and courage are about to end his life. At the door, he pauses. One last chance. Calpurnia is standing there, tears streaming down her face. Not saying anything now, just looking at him like she's memorizing his face. Caesar reaches for her hand, squeezes it once. I'll come home to you. The lie tastes bitter in his mouth, because somewhere deep down he knows he won't. But he says it anyway, for her, for himself. Then he turns away and steps into the morning light. The walk to the Senate House feels different today. Usually Caesar strides through Rome like he owns it, because he does. But this morning, his steps are heavier. The crowd seem quieter. Even his bodyguards look nervous. And that soothsayer is there again, standing at the corner, watching, waiting. Their eyes meet for just a second. The old man shakes his head slowly. One final warning. Caesar looks away and keeps walking toward the Senate, toward his friends, toward 60 men with hidden daggers. This is the tragedy of it all. Caesar could have lived, could have spent years with Calpurnia, could have watched Rome grow stronger. All he had to do was listen. Stay home, let the Senate wait. But that's not who Caesar is. He's the man who always moves forward, who never retreats, whose courage is legendary, and in 2 hours, that same legendary courage will leave him bleeding on the Senate floor with 23 wounds. Sometimes the things that make us great are exactly what destroy us. Chapter 9. Day of Betrayal. The blood-spattered toga. March 15th, 44 BC. The Ides of March. Caesar walks into Pompey's theatre, where the Senate's meeting. He's late. Calpurnia's nightmares kept him home until Marcus Brutus himself showed up to escort him. Caesar trusts Brutus completely. Why wouldn't he? The man's like a son to him, maybe literally. As they enter the curved theatre, 60 senators rise to greet their dictator, but hidden beneath their togas, daggers, every single one of them. The conspirators have been planning this moment for months. Cassius, the mastermind, Brutus, the reluctant philosopher, Decimus, Caesar's trusted friend. They've rehearsed their positions. Who strikes first? Who blocks the exits? Mark Antony? He's been lured away by Trebonius on some made-up business. Can't have Caesar's loyal lieutenant interfering. Caesar takes his seat, completely unaware. The senators crowd around him, closer than usual. Something feels different. The air's thick with nervous energy. But Caesar's been in danger before. He doesn't flinch. It starts with a petition. Tullius Cimber drops to his knees, begging Caesar to recall his exiled brother. Classic distraction tactic. Caesar waves him off. He's heard this before. But Cimber grabs Caesar's toga, pulling it off his shoulders. That's the signal. Casca strikes first, a glancing blow to Caesar's neck. Not fatal, not even close. Caesar spins around, grabs Casca's wrist. You villain, what are you doing? This isn't supposed to be happening, but now there's no going back. Chaos erupts, more daggers flash. Caesar's fighting like a cornered animal, grabbing wrists, throwing punches, trying to break free. But there are too many of them. Cassius lunges from the left. Another senator from behind. Blood's flowing now. Real blood. Caesar's still strong, still dangerous. He fought Gauls for 8 years, survived countless battles, but this isn't a battlefield. This is betrayal. And betrayal cuts deeper than any sword. The circle tightens around him. No escape. The other senators are panicking. Some flee, others press against the walls, watching in horror. This wasn't supposed to be so violent, so desperate. Caesar's backing toward Pompey's statue, bleeding from multiple wounds but still fighting, still roaring defiance. The conspirators are getting in each other's way now, stabbing wildly, some hitting each other in the frenzy. Cassius catches a blade meant for Caesar. Blood everywhere, on the marble floor, splattered across the walls. This is butchery. More conspirators join the attack. Men who owe Caesar everything. Men he's promoted, enriched, forgiven. They're all here now, all with daggers, all taking their piece of the kill. Caesar's weakening, the blood loss, the shock. He can't fight 60 men forever, but he's still Caesar, still dangerous. He grabs another wrist, spits blood in someone's face, makes them work for it, makes them remember what they're doing, who they're killing. But the circle keeps closing. Then Caesar sees him. Through the chaos, through the blood, Brutus, standing there with a dagger. Not fighting yet, just watching, waiting. Caesar's heart breaks before his body does. He stops struggling for a moment, just stares. This is the man he loves like a son, the philosopher, the idealist, the one person he trusted above all others. You too, my child, he whispers in Greek, the words that will echo through history, the ultimate betrayal. Brutus hesitates. This is the moment he's dreaded. Cassius has been pushing him for months. Caesar must die, the Republic must survive. But looking at Caesar now, bleeding, betrayed, calling him child, Brutus feels something break inside him. The other conspirators are watching, waiting. This was always the plan. Brutus had to strike, had to prove his commitment. The dagger feels impossibly heavy in his hand, but he raises it anyway. Caesar sees the blade coming from Brutus, the man he's groomed for greatness, the son of his beloved Servilia. Maybe his own son. The timing works out. The affair everyone whispered about. Caesar doesn't dodge, doesn't try to block it, just looks into Brutus's eyes as the dagger slides between his ribs. Personal betrayal hurts worse than any wound. This isn't politics anymore. This is family destroying family. Caesar's legs give out. He's done fighting. Caesar pulls his toga up over his head, won't let them see him die, won't give them the satisfaction. He collapses at the base of Pompey's statue. Ironic, since Pompey was his enemy in the civil war. But even enemies deserve more dignity than this, more honour than being butchered by friends. The conspirators keep stabbing, even though he's down, even though he's dying. They need to make sure. 23 wounds in total. Only one would have been fatal. The great Julius Caesar is dead. Dictator of Rome, conqueror of Gaul, the man who crossed the Rubicon, gone. His blood pools on the marble floor, seeps into the cracks between stones. The conspirators stand there, daggers dripping, breathing hard. Some are crying, others look shocked by what they've done. This wasn't supposed to feel like murder. It was supposed to feel like liberation, like saving the Republic. Instead, it feels like they've killed something sacred. The Senate House is in chaos. Senators fleeing in every direction. Some think it's a coup, that they're next. Others are just horrified by the violence. Blood everywhere. Caesar's body crumpled beneath Pompey's statue. The conspirators try to make speeches. "We've saved the Republic," they shout, but nobody's listening. Everyone's running. The city's about to explode into panic. This isn't how it was supposed to go. The people loved Caesar. This changes everything. Brutus looks at his hands, Caesar's blood on them, on his toga, on his conscience. The other conspirators are already arguing, what now? How do they spin this? But Brutus just stares at Caesar's covered face. The man who treated him like a son, who trusted him completely, the Republic they claim to save. It died with Caesar. They just don't know it yet. In trying to prevent tyranny, they've guaranteed it. History will remember this moment, but not how they hoped. Caesar's blood-soaked toga tells the whole story. 23 wounds, 60 conspirators, 1 dead dictator. The Ides of March 44 BC, the day that changed everything. The Republic the assassins died trying to save. Dead, the empire they feared, about to be born. Caesar's heir, young Octavian, will become Augustus, Rome's first emperor. The conspirators' greatest fear realized. Because sometimes, when you murder a king, you don't get freedom, you get a more ruthless king. Chapter 10. The Echoes of a Death. Rome responds. The Senate House goes quiet. Caesar's body lies there in a pool of blood. 23 wounds, and suddenly, reality hits the conspirators. They did it. They actually killed him. But now what? Outside, word spreads through Rome like wildfire. People stop in the streets. Merchants abandon their stalls. Mothers grab their children, because something's wrong. Something's changed. The air itself feels different, dangerous, and nobody knows what comes next. That's the thing about murder. There's always an after. Brutus walks out of the Senate House first, blood on his hands, literally. He's carrying that dagger, and he's proud? Yeah, proud. This is his moment. The great liberator. He starts climbing the steps to address the crowd that's gathering. People are staring at him like he's lost his mind, which maybe he has. Brutus raises his arms and shouts about freedom, about tyranny being dead, about Rome being saved. And you know what the crowd does? Nothing. Dead silence. They're looking at him like he just burned down their house. See, here's what Brutus didn't understand. Caesar wasn't just some king to these people. He was their champion, the guy who gave them land, money, entertainment, who conquered Gaul and made Rome rich. And now he's dead, murdered, by senators, by rich guys in togas, who think they know better. The crowd starts backing away from Brutus. Whispers turn to murmurs. Murmurs turn to something uglier. And Brutus, he's still talking about liberty, about freedom, but nobody's listening anymore. They're scared, and when people get scared, they get angry. The other conspirators file out behind Brutus. 60 senators, all looking pretty pleased with themselves. Cassius is grinning. They're waving their bloody daggers around like trophies, like they just won some great victory. But look at the crowd. Really look. These aren't faces of gratitude. These are faces of horror, of confusion, of what the hell did you just do? And that's when it starts sinking in for some of the conspirators. This isn't going the way they planned. Not even close. The celebration's turning into something else entirely. Rome's a powder keg now. News travels fast in a city of 1 million people. Caesar's dead, murdered in the Senate, by senators, and there's no clear succession plan, no heir apparent, no obvious next leader, just chaos. The conspirators thought they'd restore the old republic. But here's the problem with power vacuums. Somebody always fills them, and it's usually not who you expect. The streets empty as people rush home, lock their doors, hide their valuables, because when the strong man dies, anything can happen, and usually does. Mark Antony wasn't in the Senate that day. Convenient, right? He's Caesar's right-hand man, his closest ally, and somehow he missed the most important Senate meeting in Roman history. But Antony's smart, smarter than the conspirators gave him credit for. While they're making speeches about freedom, he's watching, waiting, calculating, because Antony understands something they don't. Rome doesn't want liberty, Rome wants stability, and whoever provides that, whoever fills Caesar's shoes, that's who wins. And Antony, he's got plans. Big ones. By evening, the city's transformed. Rome feels like a ghost town. Shops closed, windows shuttered. People afraid to go outside. There are rumours everywhere. Caesar's ghost walking the streets. His legions marching on Rome. Civil war coming. Mass executions planned. And through it all, the conspirators are holed up somewhere, probably wondering why nobody's thanking them. Why the celebration never started. Why freedom feels so much like fear. Because that's what happens when you kill a man without thinking about what comes after. You get chaos, and chaos is never pretty. Here's the cruel irony. The conspirators thought Caesar was the threat to Rome's freedom. But Caesar's dead, and Rome's more afraid than ever. More unstable, more dangerous. They wanted to save the Republic, but they've created the perfect conditions for someone even worse to take power. Someone who won't make Caesar's mistakes, who won't show mercy, who won't trust senators. The conspirators have guaranteed the very tyranny they tried to prevent. And the worst part, they're starting to realize it. You can see it in their faces. Antony makes his move 3 days later. While the conspirators are still patting themselves on the back, he's building alliances. Talking to Caesar's veterans, promising them their land grants will continue, their pensions will be paid. He's meeting with powerful families, with merchants, with anyone who has something to lose in the chaos. And his message is simple. I can fix this. I can bring back stability. Just follow me. It's brilliant, really. While they're offering abstract liberty, he's offering concrete security. Guess which one people want more? The conspirators finally get it. They're not heroes. They're not liberators. They're vulnerable. Exposed. Hated, even. The people they thought they were saving want nothing to do with them. Caesar's friends want revenge. His enemies see opportunity. And his followers, they're looking for a new Caesar. Someone who can restore order. Someone who isn't a bunch of senators with blood on their hands and philosophy in their heads. The conspiracy's unravelling before their eyes, and there's nothing they can do to stop it. Antony's playing this perfectly. He's not openly condemning the conspirators yet. Can't do that, too dangerous. Instead, he's positioning himself as Caesar's spiritual heir, the man who can heal Rome's wounds, who can unite the people Caesar loved with the institutions he threatened. It's a delicate balance, but Antony's got the skills, the connections, the timing. While the conspirators debate philosophy, he's building an empire. While they argue about liberty, he's seizing power. And Rome's starting to listen. A week after the assassination, it's clear who's winning. Antony's everywhere. Meetings, public appearances, private dinners, building coalitions, making promises, creating loyalty. The conspirators, they're hiding, scared to show their faces. scared of the crowds that once might have cheered them, because those crowds now see them as murderers, as chaos bringers, as the reason their world feels unsafe. The great liberation has become the great isolation, and isolation, in Roman politics, is death, slow, inevitable death. The city's buzzing with rumours about Caesar's will. What did he leave? Who gets what? And here's where it gets interesting. Caesar apparently adopted an heir, his grandnephew, Octavian, just 18 years old, but now legally Caesar's son, with a claim to everything, his name, his wealth, his legacy. Antony didn't see this coming, neither did the conspirators. A teenager, really, but in Rome, legal adoption means everything, and now there's another player in the game, another claimant to Caesar's crown. So here's where we stand. Caesar's dead, the conspirators are in hiding, Antony's building power, and now this kid Octavian is sailing back from Greece, claiming to be Caesar's rightful heir. Rome's about to explode. 3 different visions of the future, 3 different claims to legitimacy, and 1 million terrified citizens caught in the middle. The conspirators thought killing Caesar would solve Rome's problems. Instead, they've created new ones, bigger ones, deadlier ones. The civil wars are coming, and they're going to be brutal. Chapter 11. Ceremonies and Consequences. An empire mourns. Rome, March 20th, 44 BC. 5 days since the assassination. Caesar's body lies in state, while the city holds its breath. The conspirators thought they'd freed Rome. Instead, they've handed Mark Antony the perfect weapon, because nothing transforms a politician into a martyr quite like a funeral, and Antony, he knows exactly how to use it. The Republic's fate will be decided, not in the Senate, but in the Forum, with a crowd. And Caesar's bloody toga. Antony moves fast. While Brutus and Cassius debate philosophy, he's seizing control of Caesar's will, Caesar's papers, Caesar's funeral. The conspirators made their first mistake thinking they could just go back to normal. Like Rome would forget, like Caesar's supporters would shrug and move on. Antony sees the opportunity they're missing. This isn't about mourning a dead dictator. This is about power, real power, the kind that comes from an angry mob demanding blood, and he's about to give them exactly what they want to hear. The funeral pyre rises in the Forum. Antony's ordered it built not in some quiet cemetery, but right here, where Caesar gave speeches, where he triumphed, where Rome's heart beats loudest. Every detail calculated, the timing, the location, even Caesar's wax death mask, positioned so the crowd can see those 23 stab wounds clearly. This isn't a funeral, it's theatre. Political theatre with the highest stakes imaginable. And Antony, he's written himself the starring role, the loyal friend seeking justice for his murdered leader. Here's what gets me about Antony. He's genuinely grief-stricken. Caesar was his mentor, his friend, maybe the closest thing to a father he ever had. But he's also calculating every move. Grief and ambition aren't opposites here. They're fuel for each other. He wants revenge for Caesar. He also wants Caesar's power. He wants justice. He also wants to destroy the conspirators who thought they were saving Rome. Sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones who believe their own cause is righteous. Antony believes, completely. The crowd gathers, not just Rome's elite, but everyone. Veterans who followed Caesar through Gaul, poor citizens who benefited from his grain distributions, slaves who hoped for freedom, people who loved Caesar, people who feared him, people who just want to see what happens next. Antony studies their faces. He can feel the mood. Angry, yes. Confused, definitely. But not decided. Not yet. That's his job, to take this grief and uncertainty and forge it into something sharper, something that cuts, something that destroys his enemies. The ceremony begins simply. Traditional prayers, traditional rituals. Caesar's body displayed with dignity. Antony lets the crowd settle into familiar rhythms. lulls them, makes them think this will be standard, respectful, forgettable. He starts his eulogy quietly, almost conversational, talking about Caesar the man, his generosity, his victories, his love for Rome, standard funeral fare. But watch his timing, watch how he builds, every pause deliberate, every word chosen. He's a master manipulator, preparing to detonate his masterpiece, and nobody sees it coming. Then Antony shifts. His voice rises. He starts reading from Caesar's will. Every Roman citizen gets money, real money. Caesar's private gardens become public parks. His wealth distributed to the people. The crowd murmurs. This isn't what they expected. Their murdered dictator was trying to take care of them. While the senators who killed him, what have they ever given Rome's common people? Antony doesn't say it directly. He doesn't need to. The implication hangs in the air like smoke. Heavy, dangerous, ready to ignite. Now comes the moment. Antony reaches for Caesar's toga, the one he died in, still stained with blood, 23 holes where the daggers went in. He holds it up, and the crowd goes silent, dead silent. You can see everything. The violence, the betrayal, the way they butchered him. Antony doesn't speak. He doesn't need to. The toga speaks for itself, shows what the noble Brutus really did, what the honourable Cassius really accomplished. They didn't save Rome. They murdered it, in blood, with daggers, like criminals. The crowd explodes. Not applause, not cheers, raw fury, animal rage, people screaming for vengeance, for blood, for the heads of every conspirator who dared touch Caesar. This is what Antony wanted, what he planned, what he orchestrated with every calculated word and gesture. But here's the thing about mobs. Once you light them, you can't always control where they burn. The crowd's not just angry at the conspirators now. They're angry at everyone. At the Senate. At the system. At Rome itself. Antony keeps talking, but the words almost don't matter anymore. The crowd's beyond reasoning. They're grabbing furniture, benches, anything that burns, building their own pyre right there in the forum. They want to cremate Caesar where he lived, where he ruled, where he belonged. Not in some distant cemetery, here, in the heart of Rome. And if the city burns with him, so be it. Antony watches with satisfaction and growing alarm. He wanted this, but maybe not quite this much of it. The violence spreads like fire. Groups of Romans hunting for conspirators, breaking down doors. Anyone who looks like they might be wealthy, educated, senatorial. They're targets now. The poet Helvius Cinna gets torn apart by the mob. Wrong place, wrong name. They thought he was the other Cinna, the conspirator. Doesn't matter. They kill him anyway. This is Rome now, where Caesar's blood demands more blood, where Antony's words have unleashed something primal and unstoppable. The Republic isn't just wounded, it's being devoured. Brutus and Cassius realized too late what Antony's done. They thought they were Rome's liberators, heroes who'd saved the Republic from tyranny. Instead, they're hunted men, hated, despised, blamed for everything wrong with Rome. Their noble cause, their philosophical ideals, worth nothing against Antony's theatre, against Caesar's bloody toga, against the rage of a mob that wants their blood. The irony's perfect and terrible. They killed Caesar to save Rome, and in doing so they've destroyed everything they claim to protect. One by one the conspirators flee. Brutus leaves for Macedonia, Cassius to Syria. Others scatter across the Mediterranean like refugees, Rome's supposed saviours running for their lives. Meanwhile, Antony consolidates power. Caesar's heir, young Octavian, watches and learns. The Senate cowers. The mob rules the streets. And in the chaos, something new is being born. Not the Republic the conspirators died trying to preserve. Something darker, more absolute. An empire built on Caesar's corpse and Antony's ambition. Rome smoulders, literally and figuratively. The Forum still reeks of smoke from Caesar's improvised pyre. The conspiracy's over, the conspirators scattered or dead. But this isn't victory. Not really. It's transformation. Rome will never be the same. The Republic died with Caesar, but it's taken days for the corpse to stop twitching. Now finally, everyone can see what's left, what Antony's brilliant, ruthless theatre has created, an empire waiting to be born, and the man who made it all possible. He's just getting started. Chapter 12. Aftermath. Rebellion ignites. The Ides of March are over. Caesar's blood has dried on the Senate floor, and if the assassins thought killing him would fix everything, they were catastrophically wrong. Rome isn't celebrating. Rome is terrified, because here's what Brutus and his co-conspirators didn't think through. When you murder the most powerful man in the world, you don't restore the Republic. You create a power vacuum. And power vacuums, they don't stay empty long. The conspirators are hiding, literally hiding. These men who thought they'd be hailed as liberators are barricaded on the Capitoline Hill, afraid to show their faces in the streets. Meanwhile, down in the city, chaos. Caesar's veterans are furious. The people are confused and angry. And Mark Antony, he's making his move. Because while the idealists were planning their perfect assassination, the pragmatist was already thinking 3 steps ahead. Politics doesn't pause for moral victories. Then comes news that changes everything. A 18-year-old kid is riding hard toward Rome from Apollonia. His name? Gaius Octavius, but you'll know him as Octavian, Caesar's great-nephew. More importantly, Caesar's adopted son and heir, the boy who just inherited the most famous name in the world. And here's the thing about Octavian that nobody saw coming. This isn't some pampered aristocrat's son. This kid has steel in his spine and ice in his veins. Antony thinks he can push this teenager around. Big mistake. Octavian arrives in Rome and immediately starts claiming his inheritance. Caesar's money, Caesar's legions, Caesar's name, and when Antony tries to block him, Octavian doesn't back down. He lawyers up, he rallies Caesar's veterans, he plays the political game better than men 3 times his age. The student becomes the master overnight. Rome now has 2 Caesarians fighting over Caesar's legacy. But there's a third player in this game, Marcus Lepidus, Caesar's old cavalry commander, currently sitting on a bunch of legions in Gaul. And here's where Roman politics gets really ugly, because these 3 men realize something. They're stronger together than apart. Separately, they might lose to Caesar's assassins or the old guard senators. Together, they're unstoppable. So they decide to make a deal, a very dark deal. The Second Triumvirate is about to be born. November 43 BC. A small island in a river near Bologna. 3 men meet in secret. Octavian, Antony, Lepidus. They talk for 3 days, and what they agree to, it's going to make Caesar's crossing of the Rubicon look like a gentle stroll. They're dividing up the Roman world between them. More importantly, they're planning something that'll make the streets of Rome run red with blood. They call it the prescriptions. History calls it legalized murder. Here's how the prescriptions work. You make lists. Lists of your enemies. Lists of rich men whose property you need. Lists of anyone who might cause trouble. Then you post those names in the forum. And once your name goes up on that list, you're dead. No trial, no appeal, no mercy. Anyone who kills you gets a reward. Anyone who helps you gets executed. It's not justice, it's not even revenge, it's systematic elimination of opposition. The first lists go up, panic in the streets, rich senators fleeing Rome in the middle of the night, sons turning in fathers for the bounty money, slaves murdering masters. The whole social order collapses overnight. And this isn't random violence, This is calculated. The triumvirs need money to pay their armies. They need to eliminate rivals. The prescriptions solve both problems at once. It's efficient, it's brutal, and it works exactly as intended. But there's one name on the list that shocks everyone. Marcus Tullius Cicero, Rome's greatest orator, the conscience of the Republic, the man who spoke truth to power his whole career. And why is he marked for death? Because he made speeches, 14 speeches against Mark Antony, called the Philippics, words that cut deeper than any sword. Antony never forgot, never forgave. Now it's payback time. The voice of the Republic must be silenced forever. Cicero tries to run. He's 63 years old, fleeing like a common criminal through the Italian countryside. His friends beg him to take a ship to Greece, but Cicero keeps hesitating. Maybe he still believes in Rome. Maybe he can't imagine living in exile. Maybe he's just too old and tired to keep running. Whatever the reason, he waits too long. The assassins are closing in, and when they find him, there's nowhere left to hide. December 7th, 43 BC. A country road south of Rome. Cicero's litter is surrounded by soldiers. He knows what's coming. And here's the thing about Cicero's death that gets me. He doesn't beg, doesn't plead. This man who made his living with words faces the end in silence. He sticks his head out of the litter, looks his killers in the eye, and dies with more dignity than the Republic he served. One sword stroke ends the greatest voice Rome ever produced. But Antony isn't satisfied with just killing Cicero. He wants to send a message, so he orders something that shocks even hardened Romans. Cicero's head and hands, the parts of him that spoke and wrote against Antony, are cut off and brought back to Rome. Then they're nailed up in the Forum, right where Cicero used to give speeches. The crowds gather in horrified silence. The Republic's voice has been literally silenced, and everyone knows what this means. Think about the symbolism here. Cicero represents everything the old Republic stood for. Free speech, rule of law, moral authority over brute force. And now his severed head is rotting in the Forum, while his killers divide up the world. It's not just murder, it's the execution of an idea. The idea that words matter more than swords, that truth has power, that the Republic could somehow survive this madness. With Cicero dead, that hope dies too. The proscriptions continue for months. 300 senators dead, 2,000 knights executed, families destroyed, fortunes seized, blood in every street. And through it all, the triumvirs consolidate power with ruthless efficiency. The assassins who killed Caesar to save the Republic, they created something far worse than anything Caesar ever imagined. They didn't prevent tyranny, they guaranteed it. The Republic is dead. Long live the Empire. Rome will never be the same. Chapter 13. Echoes of Revenge. Battle of Philippi. 2 years since the Ides of March. The assassins are running out of places to hide. Brutus and Cassius have scraped together one last army, 20 legions of desperate men who still believe in the old Republic. But across the plains of Philippi, waiting for them, Octavian and Mark Antony, 42 legions, the entire weight of Rome's imperial machine. This isn't really a battle, it's an execution, and somehow everyone knows it. October, 42 BC, northern Greece. The two armies stare at each other across marshy ground that's about to soak up more Roman blood than any battlefield in history. Brutus commands the right wing, Cassius holds the left. They're both in their 40s now, greying, weathered by 2 years of running. Behind them, soldiers who joined up believing they were saving Rome from tyranny. Ahead of them, the boys who inherited Caesar's name and Caesar's rage. The thing about civil wars, nobody wins. Look at these armies. Romans killing Romans, fathers fighting sons, brothers on opposite sides. The Republic that Brutus died for at Caesar's feet, it's been dead for years. What they're fighting over now are the scraps. Who gets to wear the crown? Who gets to call themselves saviour of Rome while ruling as its master? The irony would be funny if it wasn't so damn tragic. First battle comes fast. October 3rd. Cassius makes his move, attacks Antony's camp, while Brutus charges straight into Octavian's lines. For a moment it looks like the assassins might actually pull this off. Brutus breaks through. His men are looting Octavian's camp, cheering like they've already won. But wars aren't won by individual heroics. And Cassius, he's getting butchered on the left flank. 20 legions slamming into his lines like a hammer. Here's where it gets heartbreaking. Cassius, watching his army collapse, can't see what's happening on the other side of the battlefield. The dust, the chaos, all he knows is his men are dying, his camp's overrun. Then he spots cavalry charging toward his position. Has to be enemy reinforcements, right? Wrong. It's Brutus's men coming to help. But Cassius doesn't know that, doesn't wait to find out, climbs the nearest hill with his freedman Pindarus. What happens next breaks my heart every time I read it. Cassius hands Pindarus the same dagger he used to kill Caesar. With this blade, he says, I killed the man I loved most in the world. Now it will free me from the misery I've brought on myself. He covers his face. Pindarus drives the blade home. The man who started this whole conspiracy dies thinking he's lost everything, when he's actually minutes away from sharing in Brutus's victory. Brutus finds Cassius's body as the sun sets. His oldest friend, his partner in this doomed crusade for liberty, gone over a misunderstanding, a mistake, the kind of tragic miscommunication that ends kingdoms. Brutus kneels beside the corpse and says something that'll haunt me forever. The last of the Romans. Not talking about Cassius, talking about himself, because he knows what's coming next. Knows he's all alone now, facing the inevitable. 20 days pass. Brutus tries to hold his army together, but morale is shattered. Desertions every night. Men slipping away to join the winning side. The second battle's inevitable now. October 23rd. This time there's no clever strategy, no desperate gambit. Just two exhausted forces grinding against each other in the mud. And the assassin's army, finally, completely breaks. 10,000 dead, the rest scattered to the winds. Brutus escapes the carnage with maybe 100 men. They make it to some rocks overlooking the battlefield. Below them, Antony's soldiers are stripping the dead, collecting ears for bounties. Above them, the stars wheel overhead, the same stars that shone on Caesar's funeral, on that first conspiracy meeting, on every choice that led them here. Brutus looks around at his few surviving followers and knows it's over. Rome has chosen, and Rome chose empire. That night, Brutus talks to each man individually, begs them to save themselves. Run, he says. Find new lives. Forget this failed dream. Some listen, some refuse to abandon their general. As dawn approaches, only a handful remain. His freedman Strato, a few loyal soldiers who'd rather die Romans than live as slaves to Caesar's heirs. The last republicans, watching the sun rise on an empire they'll never see. Brutus's final words are perfect and terrible. Virtue. I followed you thinking you were real, but you were just fortune's slave. He's talking about the Stoic concept of virtue, the idea that doing right matters more than winning. But here, surrounded by corpses, facing capture and execution, that philosophy feels hollow. Maybe virtue is real. Maybe it's just something we tell ourselves when we're losing. Either way, it's not enough to save the Republic. He asks Strato to hold the sword. Turn your face away, Brutus says. I don't want you to remember me like this. Then he runs onto the blade. The man who killed Caesar to save Rome from tyranny dies knowing he's delivered Rome to tyrants instead. The son Caesar might have loved, choosing death over seeing that love's consequences. It's Greek tragedy played out on Roman soil. All honour, all futile. Antony finds the body hours later. And here's something that'll surprise you. He weeps, orders Brutus wrapped in his own purple cloak, the finest one in camp. This was the noblest Roman of them all, he tells his soldiers. Enemy or not, Antony respects what Brutus tried to do, even if it was doomed from the start. Even if it accomplished nothing but bloodshed, the intention mattered. The attempt to preserve something good mattered. And that's how the Roman Republic dies. Not with Caesar's last breath in the Senate House, but here on a battlefield in Greece 2 years later, with the suicide of its last true believer. The assassins thought they were saving Rome. Instead, they guaranteed its transformation into everything they feared. Augustus will rule for 44 years. The empire will last 5 centuries. And liberty? Liberty becomes just another word carved on coins, minted by emperors. Chapter 14. From Aftermath to Ascendancy. The Rise of Augustus. Picture this. Rome, 42 BC. The assassins are dead. Brutus and Cassius. Suicide at Philippi. The republic they died for. Already a ghost. Now it's just 2 men left standing. Mark Antony, the soldier, Caesar's old lieutenant, master of the eastern provinces, and Octavian, barely 21, sickly, but holding Caesar's name like a weapon. They carved up the Roman world between them, but this truce, it won't last. It can't. Rome isn't big enough for both of them. For now, they play nice. Antony gets the glamorous East Egypt, Syria, all those wealthy provinces. Octavian, he gets Italy. Sounds like the raw deal, right? Wrong. See, Octavian understands something Antony doesn't. Rome isn't just a city anymore, it's an idea. And whoever controls that idea controls everything. While Antony's living it up in Alexandria with Cleopatra, Octavian's back home doing the boring stuff. Roads, grain supplies, veterans' pensions, making himself indispensable, building loyalty 1 Roman citizen at a time. Smart kid. But Antony's not stupid either. He's got Cleopatra, and she comes with Egypt's treasure. Plus, he's a genuine war hero. Caesar's old soldiers love him. He's charismatic, larger than life. Everything young Octavian isn't. So when tensions start building, and they always do, Antony figures he's got the stronger hand. He starts making moves, declares war on Armenia, hands out kingdoms like party favours, sets up his kids with Cleopatra as future rulers, basically acting like he's already emperor of the East. Octavian's watching all this from Rome, taking notes. Here's where Octavian shows his genius. He doesn't attack Antony directly, too dangerous. Instead, he lets Rome attack Antony for him. See, Romans are already suspicious of Eastern luxury, of foreign queens, and Antony, he's giving them plenty to work with, living like a pharaoh in Alexandria, married to Cleopatra in Egyptian ceremony, while still technically married to Octavian's sister, having kids with her, declaring those kids heirs to Roman territories. Every move Antony makes, Octavian spins it back home. Look how he's abandoned Roman values. Look how she's corrupted him. The propaganda war gets vicious. Octavian's people spread stories about Antony being bewitched by Cleopatra, about Egyptian magic, about how Antony wants to move the capital to Alexandria. Some of it's true, most of it isn't. Doesn't matter. What matters is it works. Roman senators who might have stayed neutral start picking sides, and they're not picking the guy who seems more Egyptian than Roman. Antony tries to fight back, but he's terrible at this game. He sends angry letters, makes threats, plays right into Octavian's hands. Then Octavian makes his masterstroke. He gets hold of Antony's will. Don't ask me how. Probably bribery, maybe theft. Doesn't matter. What matters is what's in it. Antony's leaving Roman territories to his kids with Cleopatra. He wants to be buried in Alexandria, not Rome. It's political dynamite. Octavian reads it aloud in the Senate. The room goes silent. Here's proof that Antony's betrayed Rome. that he's chosen Egypt over his homeland. The senators are furious. They declare war, not on Antony directly, but on Cleopatra. Clever. It lets them attack without calling it civil war. So now it's official. Rome against Egypt. Octavian against Antony and Cleopatra. Both sides start mobilizing. Antony's got veteran legions, Egyptian gold, and the loyalty of the eastern provinces. Octavian's got Italy, Rome's prestige, and something else. Marcus Agrippa, his best friend from childhood, now his finest general. While Octavian handles politics, Agrippa handles war. They complement each other perfectly. Antony's forces are bigger, more experienced, but Octavian's are united behind a single cause. Roman superiority, Roman destiny, Roman pride, that unity, it's going to matter. The fleets meet off Actium in 31 BC. Western Greece. Everything comes down to this. Antony's got 500 ships, heavy warships built for ramming. Cleopatra's alongside him, with 60 Egyptian galleys, loaded with treasure, their escape plan, if things go wrong. Octavian's got 400 ships, but they're lighter, faster. Agrippa's designed them for a new kind of naval warfare, not ramming, boarding, missile fire, maneuverability over brute force. Both commanders know this battle decides everything. Winner takes Rome, loser dies in exile, if they're lucky. The battle's a mess. Antony's heavy ships can't catch Octavian's lighter ones. Agrippa's tactics are working. But it's not a rout. Not yet. Then something happens that changes everything. Cleopatra sees the way the wind's blowing. Her Egyptian ships suddenly turn and run. Just Antony watches his ally, his lover, the mother of his children, abandon him in the middle of the biggest battle of his life, and he makes a choice that destroys him. He follows her, leaves his own fleet behind to chase after Cleopatra. His captains can't believe it. Without their commanders, Antony's fleet collapses. Some ships surrender immediately, others try to fight on, but their heart's gone out of it. By evening, it's over. Octavian's won the most important naval battle in Roman history, not through superior numbers or better ships, but because his enemy chose love over duty. Antony's land forces, watching from shore, start deserting. Why die for a commander who abandoned them? Within days, Antony's entire army has melted away. The man who once commanded half the Roman world is left with nothing but Cleopatra and a handful of loyal servants. Antony and Cleopatra flee to Alexandria. But there's nowhere left to run. Octavian's coming, and he's bringing the full might of Rome with him. They try negotiating. Cleopatra offers to abdicate if her children can rule Egypt. Antony offers to exile himself if Alexandria is spared. Octavian ignores them both. Why negotiate when you're winning? By summer 30 BC, Roman legions are marching through Egypt. Alexandria's gates are closing. Inside the palace, Antony and Cleopatra are planning their final acts. They know how this ends. Question is, will they die with dignity? Antony goes first. Gets word that Cleopatra's dead. She isn't, but he believes it. Decides life without her isn't worth living. Falls on his sword, Roman style. But he botches it. The wound's fatal, but slow. He's carried to Cleopatra's tomb, dying in her arms. She's next. Octavian wants her alive for his triumph, to parade through Rome as a captive queen. Cleopatra refuses to give him that satisfaction. The ass bite. Probably propaganda, most likely poison. Quick, dignified, royal. She dies holding the snake staff of Egyptian pharaohs, the last pharaoh of Egypt. And then there was one. Octavian stands alone in Alexandria, master of the Roman world. No rivals left, no one to challenge him. He's 32 years old, and he controls everything from Spain to Syria. The republic that Caesar died for, the republic that Brutus killed for, it's finished, dead. Octavian doesn't announce this, doesn't have to. Everyone knows. The question now is what comes next. What do you do when you've won everything? When there's no one left to fight? When the entire Mediterranean is waiting for you to tell them what Rome becomes now? 4 years later, 27 BC, Octavian stands before the Senate with a choice that will define the next 500 years. He could restore the Republic, give power back to the people, return to the old ways, or he could keep what he's won, transform Rome into something new, something permanent. He chooses transformation, takes the name Augustus, the revered one, becomes Rome's first emperor. The Republic dies quietly, not with violence but with applause. The senators clap as they vote away their own power. Sometimes the most important revolutions happen with a whisper, not a roar. Chapter 15. A Republic Requiem. The legacy of a murder. So here we are, the end of the story. And honestly, it's not the ending anyone wanted. Not Caesar, not Brutus, not the Roman people. Definitely not the Republic itself. Because here's the thing about political murder. It never goes the way you think it will. Those 23 knife wounds on the Ides of March. They didn't save Rome, they killed it. And the men who struck those blows, they created the exact thing they were trying to prevent. Think about the cosmic irony here for a second. Brutus and his conspirators, they genuinely believed they were heroes, liberators, saviors of the Republic. They saw Caesar accepting divine honours, becoming dictator for life, his face on coins, all the warning signs of a king. So they acted violently, decisively, and in doing so, they guaranteed that Rome would never be a republic again. Not ever. The thing they killed Caesar to prevent, an autocratic empire, that's exactly what they created. Because the moment Caesar's blood hit the Senate floor, the republic was finished. The conspirators thought the people would cheer, thought the Senate would thank them, thought everything would just go back to normal. Instead, chaos, civil war, proscription lists with thousands of names, Mark Antony seizing power, Octavian emerging from nowhere, the Second Triumvirate making Caesar's autocracy look gentle by comparison, heads on spikes in the Forum. The Republic didn't die with Caesar. It died because of his murder. And Brutus, oh Brutus, the noble Brutus, Caesar's possible son, definitely his protege, the man who broke Caesar's heart more than any blade could break his body. When Caesar saw that dagger in Brutus's hand, he stopped fighting, pulled his toga over his face, refused to let them see him die. Because betrayal by a stranger is one thing, betrayal by someone you love, that's what actually kills you. The wounds were just details. The republic that Brutus died for at Philippi, it was already a ghost. Had been for decades, really. The civil wars between Marius and Sulla, the rise of Pompey, the First Triumvirate, Caesar's consulship, the conquest of Gaul, all of it, death by 1,000 cuts. The old Roman system of checks and balances, citizen soldiers, temporary commands, it couldn't handle an empire, couldn't manage the wealth, the armies, the sheer scale of what Rome had become. The Republic was already dying. The assassination just made it official. What's really tragic is how completely the conspirators misread the room. They thought they were popular, thought the people hated Caesar's monarchy. But the Roman crowds loved Caesar. He'd conquered Gaul, doubled their territory, filled the treasury, gave them games and grain. When Antony held up that bloody toga at the funeral, when he read Caesar's will leaving gardens to the people, that's when the conspirators realized their mistake. They weren't liberators, they were just murderers now. And then came the hunt. Antony and Octavian, barely out of their teens, tracking down every conspirator, Cassius and Brutus fleeing east, building armies, knowing they were doomed. The Battle of Philippi in 42 BC, both of them dead by their own hands rather than face capture. Cassius first, thinking the battle was lost when it wasn't. Then Brutus, seeing his friend's body, knowing it was over. 2 suicides. Two men who thought they could save Rome by killing Caesar. Instead, they just killed themselves. But even Antony and Octavian's revenge wasn't the end, because the Second Triumvirate was always temporary, always heading toward one final showdown. Antony in the east with Cleopatra, dreaming of Alexander's empire, Octavian in the west, methodically building power. The Battle of Actium in 31 BC, and suddenly there was only one man left standing, Caesar's heir, Caesar's adopted son, the teenager who nobody took seriously until it was too late to stop him, Augustus, the first emperor, Caesar's final victory, even in death. 27 BC, Octavian becomes Augustus, takes the title Princeps First Citizen, pretends he's restoring the Republic, while actually building an empire that will last 500 years. The Senate still meets, consuls are still elected, but everyone knows who really rules. It's brilliant, actually. All the forms of the Republic, none of the substance. The conspirators wanted to prevent monarchy by killing Caesar. Instead, they just made it permanent, made it hereditary, made it inevitable. Think about the generations that followed. Tiberius, Caligula, Claudius, Nero, good emperors and monsters alike, all tracing their legitimacy back to Caesar, all ruling an empire that existed because Brutus thought he could save the Republic with a knife. The Julio-Claudian dynasty, the Flavians, the Antonines, century after century of emperors, until Rome itself finally fell, all because 60 senators couldn't imagine any solution to Caesar's power except murder, the most catastrophic political miscalculation in history. And what did Rome lose in that Senate chamber? Not just Caesar, not just the Republic, but the possibility of something different. Maybe Caesar could have been controlled. Maybe his reforms could have been preserved without the autocracy. Maybe the Roman system could have evolved instead of dying. We'll never know, because Brutus and his conspirators chose violence, chose certainty over negotiation, chose daggers over democracy. And Rome chose emperors over senators. For the next 5 centuries, the saddest part? The conspirators weren't evil. They weren't power-hungry or greedy. They were idealists, patriots, men who genuinely loved Rome and wanted to preserve its traditions. Brutus studied philosophy. Cassius fought for the Republic his whole life. They believed in liberty, in limited government, in the old ways, and that belief, that noble, sincere, deadly belief, is what killed the thing they loved most. Good intentions, the worst possible foundation for political murder. So that's the legacy of March 15th, 44 BC. 23 wounds that destroyed a 1,000-year-old republic. A murder meant to prevent tyranny that guaranteed it instead. Brutus and Cassius at Philippi, dying for a Rome that had already ceased to exist. Caesar's ghost haunting an empire that bore his name. Augustus ruling a world his great-uncle had conquered, but never got to govern. The ultimate lesson in unintended consequences, in how the worst outcomes often spring from the best intentions. And maybe that's the real tragedy here. Not that Caesar died, not that the Republic fell, but that it all could have been different. That conversation, compromise, even constitutional crisis, anything would have been better than daggers in the dark. Rome had survived civil wars before, survived dictators before, but it couldn't survive the idea that political problems could only be solved through violence. That's what died in the Senate that day. Not just Caesar, not just the Republic, but the belief that Romans could solve their problems without killing each other. The end.